Hi, Sally here. In today's video, I want to cover a topic that I find pretty interesting, and it has to do with a math problem. So what I'm going to try to do is to design a random number formula. So the interesting thing is, in Excel, we have a random number formula that we can just apply, and then every single time we call that formula, it's going to generate a random number for us. However, we don't actually have this function inside of Airtable, but that's okay. All the tools we need are inside of Airtable, so let's build this formula. Let's start with some random number foundations. So how are random numbers generated? And so according to this Reddit user, it starts off with a seed and then we apply some clever math tricks so that the number becomes unpredictable and therefore appears as if it is random. So this seed number can come from the timestamp of that moment, or it can come from any user metadata that can help us start with a number. And so what we need is a seed and then some clever math trick. So how are we going to do that inside of Airtable? We need a seed number. Created time works because it's also a timestamp. However, we have a tendency to bulk create records, and so it's very possible for multiple records to have the same created time, and therefore they have the same seed. Whatever clever formula we apply to it later, it's still going to give us the same results. We also have record IDs. However, the record ID, people have used the value formula in order to turn that record ID into a number. And sometimes it returns 1. We're not really sure why. So record ID is still a little unpredictable. And so for me, because I want every single seed number to be unique, I'm going to go with autonumbers. And those are always going to be automatically unique for every single record. And then our clever math trick is actually the use of irrational numbers. So irrational numbers has a string of decimals after it that are random by definition. And so what we're going to do is we're going to use the square root formula and then plug in any prime number inside of it to generate our irrational value. So let's cover some formula basics. We need to know square root. So the square root of 17 is this number right here, 4.123, blah, 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 blah. We need to understand string concatenation, the difference between a number and a string. So the interesting thing is, whenever you take a number and then you give it an ampersand and then a blank string, it's going to convert that into a string value. And then now we can apply things like text trimming and all of that stuff. We're going to need to understand the find formula, the mid formula for pulling a substring, as well as modulo. Now, modulo is not as commonly known to a lot of people who work with formulas. Modulo is a division function. And so what it basically does is returns the remainder after dividing. So you see here, modulo 123 divided by 6 is 20 remainder 3. And so the result of this formula is going to be 3. You'll also notice here that I put quotes around the number 123. The fun thing is Airtable actually does convert numbers, strings back into numbers to try and solve this equation. And so it's okay, we can use the number or the string itself. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to take a combination of all of these formulas and build our random number generator using the irrational sequence that is generated. So building the formula, the first thing is you need an irrational value string. So what we're going to do is I combined 2 to 3 is good, of irrational numbers, and we combine them so that the result will never be a whole number. And so for me, I chose the random number 26 and 23. The first one, I'm going to multiply the auto number by 26. The second one, I will just take the square root of the number itself. And then finally, I have a static square root just to add them all together and make sure that I absolutely cannot predict what kind of decimals we're going to be working with. And so for you, you can change 26 and 23 into anything and also apply your own combinations of arithmetic in order to get this number to be so random and different from mine. And then always don't forget to add that concatenation so that this turns into a string. And then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to keep everything after the decimal place. And so I've gotten this far. Let's take a look at step 1, our irrational value formula. So you see here, I have the same formula in my example, and then we concatenate a string. And you can see here, all of the numbers are looking very random. Let me see here, auto numbers. You will notice here that as the numbers get bigger, the whole number before the decimal starts to repeat itself. And this is the reason why we're only caring about the decimal places. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to trim that decimal place. And so we're going to use the find formula, and we're going to use the mid formula. So find in the middle of the irrational value string, the decimal place to get that index and +1. And then we're going to tell it how many characters to keep. And so over here, let's take a look at our trim decimal character. Now I have here the same formula, and then now we have everything after the decimal. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to play around with the different outputs. So we just got the sequence itself, and now we're going to try to grab different sequences of numbers out of that irrational value. And so over here, let's take a look at our first and second example. So the first one here is going to be a mid of the sequence that we generated. And so we're going to start from the first character, and we're going to take one character. So let's take a look at what that looks like. So our first number here starts with a 7, and we're taking one character. That's why this is a 7. This one is a 1, 3, 4. And so now all you need to do is change the index, and then every single record will get a second number, and a third and a fourth, all the way to 11 with just one digit. Now with a different example is, what if I need a larger number set? Maybe I want something that goes all the way up to 1,000. So all it means is that now we're going to be taking 3 characters instead of just 1. And then you can see here, now we're taking 7 to 5. So I'm going to start from the second number and then pull 3 from it. So you see here, 725 is the second number and then 3 digits. So far, what we've done is basically take exactly the number as it shows on the sequence itself. So that means this, if you're taking one character, it can be anywhere from 0 to 9. And then if you're taking 3 character, it can be anywhere from 000 to 999. But maybe sometimes we don't want it to have the full range. So what we need to do is now set a range restriction onto the formula. So let's take a look at the final part, which is refining the output. We need to look at the minimum value, and we also want to look at the value range. So a simple example, I want a number anywhere from 10 to 20. So the minimum value is 10, and the value range is 20 minus 10, which is 10, but then that would exclude the number 10 itself. And so what we need to do is +1. So between 10 to 20, there are actually 11 numbers in there. So in an example, I want a random number between 14 to 300. So the range 300 minus 14 is 286, but then we add the 1 to be inclusive of the 14. And so now we have 287 numbers in total. And then again, obviously the minimum number is going to be 14. So what we're going to do is we're going to use modulo to control the range of what the output is going to be. And so we have in here our formula, our final formula for how to get a random number sequence. We're going to divide that number by 287, which will give us a remainder of 0 to 286. And then once we add that, 0 plus 14 is 14, 286 plus 14 is 300. So let's take a look at that in practice. I have here a function, which is the exact same thing as I have on my example. And then you can see here, all of these numbers are randomly selected from 14 to 300. So I can even show you by sorting it. So you can see here at the top of the list is 14. And when we go to the bottom of the list, it's 300. And so now you basically have full control over what kind of random numbers that you get to generate. If you want to go any fancier, you can even try round robin picking. All that means is when you're doing your mid formula, that you also include a moving index using modulo as well. So again, the range is going to be, well, we have 11 characters in that sequence. And so anywhere from 0 to 10, and then +1, and then we're going to get 1 to 11, and then that way you can actually shift where you're taking that number. And so yeah, this is really fancy. This is everything I have on how to build my random number formula. Where are you using random formulas? I've seen it in product descriptions where you have thousands of products, you have maybe like 3-4 categories, and you don't want every single product description to look so similar, using the same template. And so you can randomize which portion of the template you use based on which category using this random number formula. But yeah, where else are you using it? Let me know in the comments, and also let me know if you have any questions. Good luck.